Once again, the Hollywood critics have been dismantled by the audience. Whatever you might think of Michael Jackson, there's one thing for sure. Moviegoers got going to the movies, and they moonwalked this film to gigantic box office success. Is it the final nail in the critic review score system? We'll explain why this is one giant slimy tomato on would-be influencers right now. Hello folks, and welcome back to the channel that keeps you ahead of the culture curve. As we dive in today, click that like button, and oh boy, the critics are not having a fun time. Why? Well, look at this headline out of Deadline. How Michael rocked the world away with $97 million in the US, it'll probably top 100, and $217 million plus worldwide opening, it'll probably top 220. So that's where we think it's going to be, and that makes it be a huge opening right now. And why does it have everybody on the critic side sad? Because they gave this thing a 38%. Audiences give it a 97%. Folks, we're going to get into the review in just a minute. But before we do, I want to tell you that this is not a film that treats, the star, Michael Jackson, as a normal guy. It does not. It's very careful to present him as a strange, weird, bizarre infant in a man's body. And it walks through the pathology of the household, the pathology of the father, and how this happened. And if there's a sequel, it's going to go into, the tragedy of all this and the bad decisions that were made. So I don't want you to think, that we're celebrating Michael Jackson in a way that's unfit or unfair or that diminishes the claims made. We're not doing that. And neither are audiences. This is an introspection into what happened. How did this go so wrong? How did he rise so far, so high, and then the huge decline? Now, we don't get to the decline because of some of the issues in terms of, hopefully they'll get a sequel out. But Anthony D'Alessandro is writing about this, and remember how much the critics must hate you for going and defying them yet again. It says, Michael this morning is sliding at 97 million domestic, 217 worldwide. Again, we believe it'll top 100. It says 120 million of that haul came from 82 international markets from Universal. Box office stat firm Intelligence reports that there were 6.3 million people who watched Michael in North America alone, off a general ticket price of $15.01, an average PLF ticket price of $18.56. This is ahead of Project Hail Mary's opening weekend admissions of 4.9 million. You'll notice they never, ever do this with Star Wars. They will never tell you how many people bought a ticket and then compare it to another Star Wars movie. They'll never do that with Marvel either. We save it for these kinds of things. Now, the bottom line, though, that you need to know is that this is beating Project Hail Mary in terms of people going to see it. And it's a darn good movie. It's about a very flawed person. It's a darn good movie. And you supporting this film does not support Michael Jackson. This is a movie that looks at all of the ins and the outs, the highs and the lows, the negatives. And we'll talk about it in just a second. I've got Tom, I've got Lauren. We're going to go through this. But I just want everybody out there to know that once again, what are we learning? We're learning the score doesn't matter. These people are pretenders. Their review score doesn't matter. It doesn't. Whatever they say, nobody cares. In fact, they might actually have a negative correlation. They might actually have a negative impact on whatever it is they want to achieve. When they slime something, when they splat it, people say, yeah, I want to go watch that now. That's where we are. I'm sorry to the 210 reviewers who are splatting away. Nobody cares. And there's no way in this world that this is a 38% film. That is a review bombing, the real kind, from few enough people that they can do it. But 97% from the audience. And I guarantee you, if they could adjust that number, they would. They would. So this is overwhelming. It's an avalanche of people saying, you know what? This is a good movie. And it's portraying what happened. And it's portraying how this went down. And you know what? If there's a sequel, it's going to be a hard watch. It's going to be a really difficult watch if there's a sequel. But it might be worth it because this is one heck of a movie. It's one heck of a performance. It deserves Oscars. Let's get in the review with Tom Connors, Lauren Connor, right now. It's time for an honest review of Michael, the brand new biopic movie about the music pop king, Michael Jackson. Of course, he's a controversial figure, but critics are lambasting the film all the way down at a 40% Tom, they hate this way more than The Last Jedi. Bet you got things to say about that, eh?
They're ignorant.
Ignorant. You just don't know. You're ignorant. Says 40% on the tomato meter. Let's take a look and see how the critics are reviewing this. 159 reviews. It's not a few. And if we go here, you can see, well, actually, you know what? I want it a different way. Let me see if I can get it a different way.
I'd say it's actually gotten a few more positive reviews since earlier, surprisingly. But yeah, that's what pushed it above.
Here's
what,
like
down to 30-something. But
yeah, it was down in the 30s. Here we go, folks. All critics, 40%. I don't know what this is going to be if I click top critics. 24%.
Wow.
From the top critics. 24%. Now,
look
Tom,
at that spread.
Yeah. Tom, I saw this film with, I'm not going to say whom or who, but I saw it with some YouTubers that people would know. And as we were walking out of the theater together, I turned to them and I said, the critics are liars. This is not, at the time I thought it was a 30%. The top critics put it at 24. I said, there is no way that this is a 30% film. It's just not true. It's actually, it's just untrue. I don't know how it can subjectively be untrue like that, but it is. This is a darn good movie. It's not perfect. We'll talk about it, but the casting is incredible. The visuals are like, it leaves you, you can't believe it. I just couldn't, I still can't believe. Even down to some of the background people, you know, like dancing and acting on Thriller. It's incredible how close this is. And the story itself seems to me to be the story about what goes wrong when dads don't do what dads should do, when the paternal instinct is not there, and when you drive your kids too far, well, you find out what happens. I don't want to give it away, but folks, you probably know it is the first half. There will be two. It's a little bit long, Tom. I could have done without the without some of the stretch that we have towards the end in one of the concerts. You'll probably know which one I'm talking about. But this is a good movie. This is a darn good movie, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, the attention to detail is amazing. The casting and performances are astounding. I'm a little bit on the opposite end of the length. In fact, I'm upset that feels like there's 45 minutes to an hour left on the cutting room floor. And you're not wrong. It's not a perfect film. There is plenty for the critics to actually mine here if they actually did their jobs, right? Because let's be real, what they wanted to see, and I'm going to be as...
They wanted to get down in the gutter. They wanted to get down with some of the grime.
I'm going to be as frank as I can be without being too frank. They wanted to watch him diddle little ones for 2 hours. Let's be real. That's what they expected and they wanted. But that's not what this is. This is from the producers of Bohemian Rhapsody. So if you've seen that, you kind of already know it's going to be a celebration, which it is, but it also does dive into some areas that honestly, I think if Michael was still alive, he wouldn't allow out there. Right. Because he was very touchy about his vitiligo, however you say it, and his, getting surgery and some other things that he had happen to him in his life that I don't think he would have been okay with in this biopic. But at the same time, you've got critics acting like it's being sanitized and whitewashed. Are you kidding me?
Michael Jackson became the person, mistakes and all, and probably horrific mistakes, right? But he became that person over time. And this movie is not going yet to that time. And it's walking us through. It never presents him as normal. There's never a part of this film that treats him as normal. And there are parts of this film that make you feel so sorry for him. And it takes you right to the edge of where you say, boy, I don't really want to watch any more of that because of how he's being treated. And it lets you know how you go down that pathway. This is a family that has pathology. This is a family. The pathology comes from the father. The father has no stop in him, and he is not interested in relationships. He's a transactional figure. He just wants to drive sales and fame and a comfier position for himself through his kids, and there is no end to it. And that's how we get to a broken man that we'll see in part 2. But if the critics, Tom, just wanted to see, really disgusting kinds of things, they're not going to get it here. But they will get the indications of how that can happen. Right. And a lost childhood is one of the ways that it can happen.
Yeah, there's like 3 layers to the film. There's, like you said, the father aspect of it and how Michael is afraid of his father. But there's a speech that his father gives to him That even though as the audience, we're just seeing him as his father being mean, but I think it is setting up the second half.
Oh, yeah.
Because where he says, you're going to hit a point where everybody's going to tell you yes. And what I think you're right is Michael's in the second half is going to show off and how the living life of excess and his, isolation created the perfect storm for what happened to him, right? Even though the media was unfair to him and the world was trying to tear him down because he was number one at the top, at the same time, he also facilitated some of that. And that's kind of what's being set up here. You're not wrong with that. And I think it's being very fair overall so far. But again, I
thought it played both sides extremely well, Tom. He is not a normal person. It doesn't.
No.
Listen, there were people in the theater when he speaks for the first time as an adult. There were people in the theater who laughed. And it was an appropriate time to have that awkward laugh because, hi, I'm Michael Jackson. Right? And that's not normal. He didn't have a normal childhood. And the movie walks us through that. And when he becomes adult, he's not normal. He is a little kid in the mind who never had a childhood, who has been in a pathological family and is ultra naive, like incredibly naive. But he's a superstar. And that is a heck of a thing to see. And we're going to find out where that leads him, which is going to be, of course, we know, a painful end. It's a tragic story we're going into.
Absolutely. I mean, and this is where I feel like there's so much context missing just in this part of his life. Because you're cramming about 20, 25 years into one 2-hour film here.
But look at this real quick, Tom.
Another 20 years that they got to go through in the next film yet. Yeah.
I got to pause you here, Tom, because this is when I looked over at some of my friends from YouTube and I said to them, this deserves an Oscar. I mean it.
Oh, Jafar is
This is incredible.
Melts into his uncle. Like after about 2 minutes, you're forgetting that you're watching a performance.
It's incredible.
You think it's Michael Jackson.
It's unbelievable. I've never seen a movie that does this. I have never, ever seen a movie that gets it this right, down to the mannerisms, the looks. It's like I was sitting there and I was thinking, did they CGI his face? No, they didn't. Oh my gosh. And there's sometimes when it's a little uncanny, but it is so accurate.
What's crazier is when you think about the fact that Jafar, I mean, I'm trying to remember how old he is. I don't even know if he really got to see his uncle all that much before he passed away. So, this is all from probably just seeing video and, other research that a normal actor would do. So you got to give this kid credit for this.
Right.
Family aside. And this is kind of the whole thing with, and, the beauty of this film, and this might be another reason why the critics aren't liking it. They would have had something to hang on had the movie been, oh gosh, us poor black people, the whole movie, right? There's one scene.
Not in there.
One scene that basically has to do with his race. And that is 100% true.
Yes, it's historically accurate.
I just told that story the other day.
It's historically accurate. And that's why, they don't like it because it's not a woke film. It's just telling the truth. And it's giving it to us from all sides. Tom, it can't be a tragic story. We can't go somewhere tragic unless there's something to lose. This man not only lost his childhood, but he didn't know how to be an adult whatsoever. And he went into this. I mean, like in most stories, Tom, it's drugs, it's alcohol, it's women. That's not here. This guy is an 8-year-old who doesn't know, like he can sing, he can dance like nobody else, but he's an 8-year-old. He doesn't understand the world at all. And that's intentional from his father.
He's never, ever experienced the real world 100%. And the point I was getting to with Jafar is, like, the whole point with the race thing is this is something that's been thrusted upon, people of all non-white races for years, is that whenever they are talented, it's a God-given gift, in quotations. It's not like, here's the thing that people need to understand about Michael Jackson. He worked his butt off. Not only did he get it beat by his old man, but later on in life, he spent every waking moment, and they do show a lot of that in the film, worrying about the dancing, the sound, the music, every little thing that he, planned out. It was all meticulous.
And that's what makes this sad, Tom.
He put in the time,
It's similar to
Jafar
Bill Cosby.
Did too. That's my point,
It's similar to Bill Cosby because in the 80s, we had race relations that were miraculously better than any time in history. People were watching Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, Bill Cosby. We had male figures, black male figures, who were the leaders of our time. People were aspiring to this. This was breaking down barriers. And the deep and sad fact of reality is that this is tragic because Bill Cosby didn't recognize what he meant, what his persona meant, and he did things that were terrible. And he destroyed that. Nobody watches the Bill Cosby show. Michael Jackson, because of the damage done to him in his childhood. And he's not free, folks. That doesn't mean that he gets off scot-free and we say, well, it's excused. Then no, that's not what I'm saying. But there's a tragedy here in that what we're watching in this film is something that was miraculously good, and it's going to be destroyed. It's going to be destroyed by pathology instilled from childhood that's going to cause him to do things that are going to destroy him. But it's not only that, it's also the people around him who are actively destroying him because he's so naive. Tom, any thoughts on that, on what we lost out of the 80s?
Oh, man. I mean, it's just... The thing is about Michael's life is it's so complicated, and he was such an icon of the 80s. And I mean, if anything, that's what it feels like. That this movie, and this is why I was kind of surprised you said it was kind of too long, was that it feels like it goes through so much so fast that it feels like it's missing so many bits and pieces. As somebody who knows the history of Michael pretty well, personally, as a huge lifetime fan, I feel like we're missing so many other parts of Michael that aren't here. And that's possibly what certain members of his family are talking about. And other aspects. And again, you're not wrong, because he is going to be set up for the ultimate tragic ending, and we all know this.
Yep.
And this is what makes me so upset about the critics is like, you're reviewing the sequel we haven't even got yet. And you guys know this, and I reported on this months ago, and nobody was really paying attention then that this was going on with this movie. For those who may be still in the dark about what happened here, they shot.
By the way, Tom, this concert right here, this is where I thought it went a little long, and we could have reduced maybe 3-4 minutes out of this concert.
I agree with you. Like I would have actually sacrificed some of the musical moments for actual
that's exactly
context.
Right. Yep.
And honestly, even though I was told earlier on that this movie was going to end with bad, I even told the guy that I heard that from, I said, that's a bad move. They should, no pun intended, it should end with Man in the Mirror, because that'll really set up the next part. And that is his anthem. And the song is kind of mostly known with him, even though the bad aspect is great. But there's just so much stuff that feels like it was missed here. But you're right. Like, these critics are against this movie. They're not getting the movie that they wanted to make or that they wanted to see. And I'm still curious of why they ever would have expected that kind of a movie from the Jackson family. Like, it just...
I feel like the Jackson. I feel like this is a gift from the Jackson family, because they don't. This is not a glorification. I thought that's what I was going to get when I went into it. I really thought that the critics were going to have something valid to say, and this was going to be a glorification. When he gets the monkey, for example, when he gets Bubbles, right, the chimp, nobody around him thinks that's good. Everybody around him thinks this is strange, because it's not a pet. It's his friend, because he has no friends. Yeah. Everybody around him thinks this is weird. When he gets the giraffe, everybody thinks this is weird. This is like everybody around him, but they're not going to get in the way of his dad trying to make every dollar he can off of this man and profit. And that's the story here. And as I said, the movie's a little bit long for me. If it had replaced some of those musical numbers just a little bit with what you're talking about, I would have appreciated that. I didn't care on the down stuff. Okay, I did not care for CGI animals. I'm sick of it. we can do real animals. You can do it and be careful and kind to the critters. They can do this. We don't have to do CGI animals. It looks awful. It's terrible. There are some of the concert scenes that are bad CGI. When we visit Indiana at the beginning, really bad CGI. But for the most part, this is a great film, and I'll come back and revisit it when we see the second half. Because really, it's going to be one movie at that point. And we'll see, do these stories line up the right way? Do they avoid some of the darker stuff that's going to happen? And how do they portray it? I thought they took us right up to the line in this one in terms of what he suffers as a child. They took us right up to the line where I was ready to say, okay, that's enough. And then they stopped. And I appreciated that, Tom. So there are some imperfections here, but it's great.
I take it Lauren didn't see it because he hasn't said a word.
No, I haven't. I'm planning to go see it with my son because he's a huge Michael Jackson fan. But I'm just fascinated listening to you guys talk about it because I'm excited because we're getting a season of good movies for the first time in like forever. And I wasn't aware this was going to be a two-parter. So
I'm surprised it's good. I thought I was going through the whole summer. Like I've been sitting here thinking, well, the good movies are gone. This is a good movie.
I mean, it does have its issues. You're not wrong. Like I said, it's missing a lot of contextualism, as far, if that's even a word, as far as like one of the best scenes. There's so many great moments in the film, but one of the best scenes is when Michael gets the inspiration for Beat It, right? Like, if they had more of those scenes, because the beauty of everything that's in this movie, and this is the thing I can say about it, even though some of it may be dramatized just a bit, it all happened. Like, most of it has video evidence. Like, and see, the critics, if they actually wanted to be real about this movie, you could say there's plenty of things you could get into this and say, yeah, on a narrative level, if you're not a Michael Jackson fan, this film lacks the substance and context you need in certain aspects of his life. And I agree with that. If somebody comes at me and says they didn't like the movie because it felt like nothing but a 2-hour, music video, which Michael would have loved, mind you. But that being said, I would have been like, you're not wrong in that aspect. But if you come at me saying, oh, it just didn't cover this, it didn't cover that, and then I want to shut you down and I'm not going to listen to your review, because you just are reviewing a movie that you wanted because you were expecting it to be this salacious film. And I kind of blame Oliver Stone, the way he made The Doors, for this, because there was a lot of people that love that film, and I love it too, but I'm well aware that that's only showing one side of Jim Morrison, the worst side of Jim Morrison. Right. And anybody who knew him would say that that's not all of Jim Morrison. There's a reason why people loved him, right? He wasn't just this drunkard drug addict who treated women like crap and all this other stuff. He was this other guy too. And that's the thing that Michael shows us, both sides of him, or all sides of him. Because like I was saying, there's several levels to this film. You're right. There's the father-son story. There's the aspect of that's setting up, he's setting up his own failure along with the media's setting him up too at the same time. The fact that he hasn't had a normal life or lived a normal day in his life is going to feed into the fact of, he lives in isolation, and that is a big aspect of the film, especially when he's a child. That heartbreaking scene, I don't want to give too much away.
Do you know, Tom, when he actually moved out from his parents' mansion?
Yes, I do, and that's setting up.
How old was he when How old was he though when he moved out?
I don't remember the exact age, but it was like in the early 90s ish, because it was when he got back from the Bad tour. Between
he was like 30.
He started working on date. Yeah, it was somewhere between 20 something.
People don't understand this. This guy. It was a sweet kid. And, I knew a guy back in high school who was one of those super athletes. And people didn't, but he was socially not well aligned. He was a mean guy. And people didn't know that behind the scenes, his father was beating him every time he missed a shot in a game or missed a free throw or whatever. And, it messes people up. It messes people up. And this movie does not shy away from, he's messed up, but he's somebody who wants to do the right thing. He just doesn't know how to navigate the world. He's going to make big mistakes later on. But again, if he's not a good person, there's no tragedy. It's just like he gets what he deserves. That's not what is presenting here, and I think it's probably accurate. Tom, I want to ask you about the big scene in the movie, and I know you've got something you want to add, and let's just go with it together. So, sure. Tom, the big scene to me is when he has the accident that his father forces him into, and his head is caught on fire. I didn't realize that it almost killed him. But in the movie, it presents that way. I'm assuming that's true.
Yes.
I didn't. So what happens there is twofold. So one, they addict him to medicine at that point or drugs. Mm-hmm. And then two, there's an opportunity there. And I want folks to listen to this because there's something to learn about the paternal spirit and what you should do as a father. There's a moment there where the father has the opportunity to step in and save his son and say, I've pushed you too hard. I love you, son. It's not about the money. You don't have to go on tour. We're going to get through this together. And he never gets that fatherly love. And that's what's going to lead him into a pathology that he will choose. But it's what leads him to that pathology where he's going to search for that kind of a love in a very inappropriate way. Because instead of his father taking the time to say, I love you, I'm going to stay with you, we're going to get through this, I'm sorry, his father says, drug him up, how quick can we get him back on tour? Mm-hmm. And that's the defining moment of where the father-son relationship is irrevocably damaged, and we're set forth onto a path where he's going to make horrible, terrible decisions that are also going to spread pathology to others.
I mean, there's that aspect of it too. I mean, I was going to bring up the whole fact that, I mean, this part of the story is kind of a survivor story, right? It's kind of the story of an abuser taking control of their narrative or their life, right? Because the whole point of Michael, and it's really seen in the early times when he's having meetings with people, like at CBS, compared to when he comes in the Miles Teller scene where he's introduced, right?
Yep.
And you start to see the transition between Michael of this meek, mild individual who, you know, speaks to people who he basically is their boss, almost like he's asking them for permission, right? To the point where he is finally becoming the man in control.
Well, sort of.
But
he's like what an 8-year-old would imagine being the boss would be.
Exactly, and you're not wrong, and that's what I'm saying. Like the whole thing and the damage that has been done to him. And what he's doing to himself in a way, for right now, it works for him, right? The whole mysteriousness and feeding into the whole, you know, wacko-jacko aspect of his life. Right. How later on that would make it difficult for anybody to not believe the accusations, right? So, like, that's what I believe the film is going to be about, more so the second part, because the whole thing that I think is going to really bother the family and the whole thing with the estate, because I was going to get to this and I didn't really get to it up before, was that they filmed the whole entire film. Right, like it was supposed to be one just big biopic, but what happened was the estate failed to tell them that one of the individuals who they went to court with,
there are stipulations where they can't.
Yeah, they weren't able to use them in the movie, so they forgot to tell that to Lionsgate. Oops. So Lionsgate is like, WTF? Now we've got a movie we can't release. That's why it got delayed, and they decided we're going to chop it off in the middle. See how the first part gets a reaction, and if that does well, then we'll finish the film off. Well, pretty much they kind of knew about a month or so ago when the movie started selling really well pre-ticket sales-wise that this was probably going to have a sequel, and it kind of sets that up in the film.
Yeah,
right?
I highly recommend people go and stick it to the critics. These influencers, they need to know they have no power. They just need to. This is not a bad movie. If you want it to be something different, whatever. Like if you want it to be part of the modern woke war, it's not. It just isn't, okay? Lauren, I'm going to get to the score in just a second. We're going to give it a score, and I see Criticlist is out there. We're going to be actually using the Criticlist score I've got in just a second. Lauren, before we do that, though, can you talk about the loss that we've suffered in the culture from the 80s? People look back to the 80s and they miss it. And even in the early 90s, Lauren, but think back then to how we were handling race relations and where we were. Like, none of the stuff that exists today in terms of oppressor versus oppressed and the evil patriarchy, none of that was part of the 80s experience.
It's difficult to put it into words in a way that somebody who wasn't there would understand. When you start thinking about the scale of the loss of culture and the way that people felt, I think the word that I would actually go back to, part of what's been robbed of us was just a feeling of safety, in a way. We became such a safety obsessed culture that things actually began to feel unsafe. You know, people started looking askance at each other, and now you're tracked and monitored everywhere you go. And back in those days,
bubble wrap you.
Back in those days, you hopped on your bike and rode down a dirt road and didn't come back until dark, you know, and your parents didn't worry. There was a shared cultural experience, like you were talking about Bill Cosby. Everybody watched Fat Albert, you know.
Oh yeah, man, what a loss we suffered by some really bad decisions by some guys who did not recognize their place in history and could not overcome what had been dealt to them and the vices that were inside of them. They could not overcome the shadow within, and it had a detrimental impact on society for decades. People don't, it's like the butterfly effect. People don't think about, what if the little moments actually do matter? And what if I put my life in order? Like, what would happen then? And you got these situations, like Bill Cosby and Michael Jackson, where, they were unable to restrain themselves from the darkness that lies within. And it was a horrible hit on the world. I can't imagine if Michael Jackson were alive today and had a healthy life with a healthy father who had taken care of him. I can't imagine how big and what an impact he might have had if he had been, after that injury, if he had been shepherd it in the right way, and it didn't happen. And it's a reminder to all of us to take care of those in our families and our friends and do all that. Let's go to the review score, and Tom, you tell me if I'm wrong, okay? And we're not done yet, so Tom, don't worry. I'm not gonna end the conversation, but
No, you're fine.
I'm giving Michael part 1 an 80%, 8 out of 10. I really, really like this film. It's not Project Hail Mary good, but it's pretty darn close. And I had no idea, this was nowhere on my radar that this film was going to perform like this. I thought I was walking into a 6. I thought I was walking into a 5.5. It's a great film.
Oh no. Lauren's gonna be sad again. He's texted me last night about how bad the Odyssey's gonna be. That guy needs a pick-me-up.
Ah, Lauren's feeling down in the dumps again, huh? Sounds like he's feeling forlorn. Nice setup, Floral.
Wilton, don't you have a bridge to haunt or something? Leave Lauren alone. He's not even here to deal with your nonsense.
Well, 'cause he's all alone. There's no one there beside him. I bet he's just lamenting about his boring life. He probably needs WDW Pro to give him some good news. Like that Jonas was fired.
You're a pest, you know that? Lauren's fine. He's probably just, nervous or something. He's not sulking or anything.
Sulking? Oh, actually, he's probably just languishing. Picture it. Lorne staring at the movie screen, lamenting that he has to be there. And then the film ends, and like a Christmas ornament that fell off a tree, he's shattered.
You're weird.
I should troll the WDW Pro comments that Lauren's so down he's... Wait a minute. Lauren's so down, he's practically Lawrencescape art.
Yeah, and I'd be thrilled if you'd leave and do that. For a few hours. Actually, it'll help Pro in the algorithm by you leaving comments, or noise, or whatever, on all of Pro's videos.
Noise! I am a maestro of mirth. Lauren's my new canvas. Like a mom folding laundry. Oh, that one sucked.
Yeah.
Alright, well, I'm gonna go check out the next TPP article and get launched into the stratosphere of information. Nobody wants to be lonely. Everybody hurts sometimes.